Welcome to the Idea Climbing Podcast. A seven-figure income doesn't start with a business plan, it starts with a mindset. I discuss how to create a millionaire mindset in this episode with my guest, Cole Vandee. Cole is a strategic marketing mind behind more than $300 million in found revenue generated for clients ranging from celebrity coaches to DTC brands in the pet industry. With his unique perspective to bridge the gap between what's working now and what the future marketplace will demand, Cole has catapulted several brands to nine figures and beyond. We dive into topics such as why your early perceptions of money are really about running away from something, not moving towards something, and how to start running towards the life you want, how to discover and connect to your bigger purpose, how to get and keep traction over getting over your initial hump of getting started, and the one thing above all else that you need to do to create and maintain a millionaire mindset, and more golden nuggets of advice. You're going to love this show. Thank you for making the time to do this podcast interview, Cole. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
And we're going to be talking about how to create a seven-figure or millionaire mindset with your business. Before we get into the tips, the tactics, the strategies, when it comes to creating a seven-figure mindset, I know you just mentioned before I hit record, you've been teaching it forever. How did you learn it? Why do you love it? What's your story?
Yeah, I don't want to bore everybody with the normal rags to riches story, and that'll tie into the kind of the question that you had asked. But I grew up in the Midwest in America here on the border of Illinois and Iowa on the Mississippi River in a small farm town, and success wasn't anything like it is that we see on the internet today, right? It was you have a $60,000 home, you work at a factory, make $18 an hour. You drive an old pickup truck, and that is ultra wealthy, ultra successful where I grew up for the most part. There's a few outliers that own some local businesses and stuff that were doing well, but nothing like we see today with these YouTubers and TikTokers and celebrities and everything else. And so for me, I just had like this burning desire that I wanted more and that I knew more was available, but I didn't know what that meant, what it was, what it felt like, who had it. I just always had a desire to do more. And I think it came out of sports. I was a huge baseball guy for 15 years, played very competitively, played probably 5 or 6 days a week, 7 days a week. During the winter, we played inside kind of thing. And just kind of muscled my way through. Wasn't great in school. If you think you have to have some college degree, it's not true. And got into sales because unlimited paycheck. As long as I work really hard and got really good at what I did, I could make as much money as I wanted. And that's, if I wanted more, that seemed to be the path. So I got into sales when I was really young. Took a couple weird sales jobs. I sold auto parts for a while, and then I sold Cutco knives door to door. And then I got into car sales. And before everybody, starts hating on me, like I'm a, slick hair, used car salesman, that I didn't love the industry. I was there to learn how to sell cars, take care of customers, and kind of move on to do something else and bridge the gap between not having a resume and then having a resume and being able to get a job I wanted. And then quickly got into owning my own businesses, starting a bunch of different companies. A lot of them failed. Most companies I've started have failed at this point. And I've only had a handful of things that have actually worked. And so I guess that's a little bit about me. I got into copywriting and marketing and stuff 8 or 9 years ago. Writing copy for really big names. Tai Lopez was one of my first clients. The here's my Lamborghini, it's cooler than books guy that everybody's seen on YouTube. Wrote for him and then went on to write for a lot of other big names and make them a lot of money. And I've been a part of a lot of companies that scaled up from zero to millions of dollars to tens of millions of dollars, and tens of millions of dollars to hundreds of millions of dollars. And even more recently, a couple companies that are getting into billion-dollar exits. And so I've been inside of organizations and working hand in hand with entrepreneurs that are just different, and they operate in a different capacity than most people think. And it's a lot of the stuff that you're not seeing from the gurus and the YouTubers and everything else about what it actually takes to be successful. So excited to hopefully share some things that might be helpful for people today.
That's interesting. I love that. What comes to mind when with what you just mentioned that like the masses or the general public doesn't see? What are a couple things that come to mind that people don't see when it comes to that seven figure plus mindset?
I mean, I think the hard part is that a lot of and I want to set the record really straight. No one has ever paid me for me to teach them how to make millions of dollars.
Okay.
I teach someone copywriting, and then they're like, how do I make more money? And then after this has happened probably thousands of times, it's like, all right, here's a roadmap on like what you need to do in order to build $1 million company or a $10 million company, or what we've done to grow companies to $100 million. And so like I don't offer this as a service. I'm not some guru that, charges $10,000 for you to learn the secret sauce from me. So I'm sharing this candidly. I have no, like, there's nothing for you to buy, right? Your credit
Okay.
card is safe in your wallet. I think the biggest thing is that your favorite gurus that are out there that are very successful today, most of them, to get to their first $1 million, they weren't relying on paid ads. They weren't relying on funnels. They weren't relying on marketing efforts. They weren't relying on Instagram views and DMing and everything else. They were purely picking up the phone and talking to human beings and getting money from them, and then moving on to the next human being and getting money from them, and moving on to the next human being and getting money from them. And it's really boring. It's not sexy. It's not something that you want to pay for advice on what to do or how to do, because it requires you to work really hard. And for a lot of people to tell you no and to get rejected all of the time. And that's like the hardcore reality of like getting there and building the momentum and getting to that first, 6-figure month or $1 million year. It's just a lot of grit and a lot of hustle and a lot of work without really a lot of clarity or certainty or validation or all the things that we're hoping for.
Mhm.
It's a grind.
So where does the mindset start? What's the beginning point?
I think when I look at it for myself, when I look at myself and I compare myself to a lot of others that have gone on to build, again, multi-million-dollar organizations, and some that have gone on to do billions, it's the same mindset. It's an audacious belief that you're going to make it work. It's when you look at it on paper, starting a business is the worst possible thing you could ever do, ever. Almost every single business that starts will fail. Of the ones that do succeed, most of those will fail within the next 12 months. Of those that do succeed, most of those will fail in the next 12 months. And so when you look at it on paper, if you were to go to the casino and there was a table game where it was you put down $1,000 and you had a 0.0002% chance of making your $100 back, let alone a profit, would you put your money down? And most people would say, no, why would I ever do that? But when you run the numbers out in business, that's what it is. And so it doesn't make any sense. And so there has to be a little bit of a delusion of, I'm going to make this work. Even though you don't know how, you don't have experience, you don't necessarily even have a roadmap, no one's really encouraging you. You have to have some sort of belief of like, I'm going to make this work. And then parallel to that, Steve Jobs mentioned this in quite a few different interviews that he had done over the years. And he said, if you're going to go into business, you better be passionate about something, because you're going to have days where you think the entire world is coming after you and wanting to beat you down and make you fail. And it's those days where you have to have a reason why you're doing what you're doing. Because business is a lot of times like war. And if you don't know why you're in the middle of this war, you're going to want to leave the war. And that means you're leaving your business. And that's where I think a lot of businesses end up failing. And so, so a lot of people preach like, be passionate about something. It's like, okay, but then you start spinning your wheels. What am I passionate about? I think it's just like just betting on yourself and being passionate about being great at something, and being passionate about, taking the next step, finding the gap, solving a problem, helping people in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you love baseball and that's enough for you to get through a war. Whatever it is for you, having some strong, undeniable reason, unshakable reason to do it is a huge starting point for those that end up becoming successful, and usually the place of lack that a lot of people have on their way to becoming successful, and they end up failing.
Well, once you're on your way to becoming successful, you've had some good fortune. I'm not saying literal the word fortune is in a fortune, but you've had some good fortune. You're on your way. How do you get and keep traction after you get over the initial hump of getting started?
that's that's probably there's lots of plateaus along the way. So from zero to $5,000 a month, that's the first plateau. This is where most people stop. So if you're a freelancer or you have, a handcrafting business, you sell stuff on Etsy or whatever it may be, most people stop at 5,000 a month. The reason for that is because that's the average income in America. And so once you make 5,000 a month, for the most part, your mortgage or rent is paid, food's on the table, car payments paid, you're paycheck to paycheck again, but you're doing it on your own terms. You no longer have a boss. That's where most people stop. Most people have this desire, like, once I get to 10,000 a month, life is going to be great. And so they get to 10,000 a month and they realize how little money that is, right? Your mortgage is paid, you're eating a little nicer food, your car's probably a little nicer, and you can take a vacation or two every year. But you're still on this hamster wheel of trying to make everything work as much as you can. You don't really have a lot of resources. You are probably the only employee. You're doing all the work, and it's tough and it's a grind. The next plateau is 30,000 a month, and this is where if you get stuck here, this is a challenging place to leave. And at 30,000 a month, typically you can afford everything that you actually want. Anything beyond this in your pocket just becomes a bigger this or a nicer this. So, at 30,000 a month, you can probably live in the nicest part of town in your city, unless you're living in like Manhattan or Los Angeles or San Francisco. If you're making 30 grand a month, like, you're probably doing really well. I know, like in Chicago, you can probably have a penthouse and a skyscraper for 7 or 8 thousand a month, and then you can drive a really nice car. Maybe you drive a Mercedes S class and you pay 1,600 bucks a month, or a Range Rover or something. You can take a couple of trips. Food's no longer an issue. You're not really looking at the price tag as much anymore, or whatever it may be. And most people stay here because they realize, oh, uh, I have all my needs are met, and the next dollar doesn't excite me anymore. The pain of going out and getting the next dollar is not worth having, not a penthouse, not in this building, but in that building, or not having a Mercedes, but having two Mercedes. Like, it's no longer worth it for most people. So to get out of that headspace, you have to start looking outside of yourself of, okay, I'm not doing this for me anymore. Now I'm doing this for a purpose, a cause, a reason to help people, to serve people. Maybe I have family members that I want to put on payroll, and I can't do that at, 360 grand a year.
Mhm.
And so something else has to happen. And this is where the sprint from 30 grand a month to $83,333 a month goes, or $1 million
That's
a
pretty
year.
specific.
That's just $1 million a year when you back it out.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of thing. So yeah, there's a path, and there's plateaus along the way, and there's different challenges that people are going to face along the way. And getting like really honest with yourself about, like, why do you want $1 million company? Why do you want to be a millionaire? I would say, of the people that I've spoken with over the years that I'm friends with or whatever, and they're in business or they're in sales, and they say they want this thing. And then once I question them enough about, why do you want it? What are you going to do? What's your life going to look like? What's going to change? How's your family going to be? And I really ask them like 30 or 40 questions. By the end of it, they're like, well, I don't need to make $1 million a year. I only really need to make 200 grand a year. And they just want other people to know that they make $1 million a year is typically what ends up happening. And that's where most people stop, and they no longer have a desire to make more money or to build a big thing, or they get really deflated on the idea of it because they realize, I'm just trying to make other people happy or like me. So
That's scary. And I love what you meant. You mentioned the word purpose. Once you get to a certain level where it is, without using numbers, whoever's listening, watching, you're comfortable, you're all set. what suggestions do you have for people to how do you connect to a purpose and not just go, yeah, I'm all set? Or how do you chase the wrong purpose? Oh, I want people to know that I have the next level of Mercedes. What can people do to connect to a bigger purpose?
The best way I've had this conversation with a lot of people over the last 6 months specifically. So this one hits really close to home for me, and it's something I've even been battling of like getting really clear on like why am I here? What am I doing? And you know, the biggest thing that's related for a lot of people, including myself, and I learned this one years and years and years ago from a client of mine and a friend, Alex Sharfin, who's very successful business coach and consultant. He's been a consultant since the early 2000s with like multi-billion dollar companies and stuff. And he said that typically the place that you get stuck in is when you first get into entrepreneurship, you're typically running away from something. You're running away from being poor. You're running away from everyone telling you you can't do it. You're running away from your hometown. You're running away from living in a crappy neighborhood or whatever it is, right? And eventually you get far enough away to where that's no longer scary.
Mm.
And then the next thing is you have to stop running away from what life used to look like, and you have to eventually start running towards the life that you actually want. But along the way, you've never thought about what you actually want. You've only thought about what you don't want. And so most people get stuck kind of in this pocket of like, okay, well, what do I want and what is my purpose? And then, like you kind of mentioned, where you were throwing out some suggestions or ideas here, right? Where it was like, okay, what if I'm chasing the wrong purpose? And that's where I think a lot of people get stuck in this world of purpose. Like your purpose is going to change over time, right? For me in my 20s, my purpose was to make as much money as I could, travel as much as I could, have as much fun as I could. So, you know, private jets, going to the beach, doing all the fun stuff. Like that was my purpose. I'm in my 30s now. My purpose is a lot more, okay, how do I secure myself financially to where I don't have to work and my passive income actually pays me every single month and I don't have to make the next dollar to survive. And how do I make sure that my family is taken care of? And you know, what neighborhoods am I going to be living in so that way my kids have a great place to live? And so, you know, like I'm thinking differently because I'm at a different stage in my life. And that doesn't mean that my first purpose was wrong. It just meant that that was the purpose at that time. And so when you start going in and like, okay, what's my purpose? It's like, well, you're going to work on things now that 10 years from now, you're going to look back on and go, well, that was stupid. And there's nothing that you can do to change that, avoid that, remove that, erase that, or prevent it. It's like it's going to happen. You're going to work on things now that mean nothing to you in 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years. You're going to do things now that 20 years from now, you're going to laugh at yourself for. And the truth is, you know, when I look back 10 years ago, like, why? Like, I remember I was flying in private jets and I was paycheck to paycheck. Like, what was I doing? That doesn't make any sense, right? Like, I'd get a little, like, I remember a client would pay me would fly me out and pay me a fee to come teach at their mastermind for one day. I would use 100% of that fee to cover my private jet flight back and forth from LA to
Ah.
Vegas. Like, that's stupid. Why would I do that? Right now, thinking about it, but back then I was just having fun. And so, you know, can I go back to 20-year-old me and be like, you don't need to do that?
Mm.
Sure. Right. Am I going to listen? No, I'm 20 years old. That's what I want to do. Um, so yeah, so I mean, defining purpose, like ultimately it all comes down to everyone wants to help somebody. Right. At the end of the day, we want to help people in some way, shape, or form. How you want to help them, who you want to help, that's probably going to be shaped based off of your life. Most of the time, we want to help people that are like us or we used to be like. So, people from our neighborhood, people that look like us, people with the same struggles we have, people that are facing challenges that we were able to overcome, but maybe not everyone was as resilient or strong or had the support system or opportunity that we did. So we want to go back and help those people. And so sorry, my cat keeps coming in and out of my studio, so it's loud out there. So yeah, so it's at the end of the day, like just choose something that helps people, and then the way you help them is going to change and evolve over time as you learn more, get more experience, try more things out. Like you're going to do 50 things that don't work. You only need one that does. So that would be my suggestion on like, what is my purpose? How do I define that? Like, just move in the direction of helping people, probably people like you, and just start trying things and see what happens.
I think I know the answer to this because I think you just touched on it, but I got to ask. Once you hit that, let's say a high comfort, let's say high six figures, low seven figures, how do you maintain it? Because I've heard so many, without getting celebrities goes without saying, but business people, horror story, they make it, they're there, and then they like kind of go off the radar, and then you hear about them if it's someone you know, and it's like, what happened to John? Oh my God. Once
Yeah.
you get to that high six, low seven, how do you maintain it? What do you have to do
That
mentally?
that's the worst spot to be in. Realistically, you're making 700 grand, maybe 1.2 million a year, as a business. If you're a W-2 employee, it's completely different. But if you're like a business owner and you're in that realm, one, you don't have enough capital available to you to have a big enough team to help solve all of the problems in the business. So you're still doing a majority of the work. By the time you hit that number, you're hoping for a vacation. You're hoping for some time off. You're hoping to like, okay, I built this thing. Now what? Right? I can chill. And the reality is you want to you want to push through that $1 million mark, and you want to get to around 2.5, $3 million. And it's significantly easier to sustain at 2.5 to 3 million because you have a team now. You're going to make the same, if not a little bit less than you were at 1 million a year because you have a bigger team. You're paying more in taxes. You're paying more in payroll tax. You're paying more in overhead. You're probably paying a little bit more to acquire customers. So you'll make a little less money, but you'll have at least the opportunity to sustain where you're at. But trying to Tony Robbins says this in a more of a roundabout way that's more applicable to everyone, but if you're not growing, you're dying. And so if you're trying to plateau out your business and you're like, I'm just going to run a $1 million a year business forever. Well, one, you're losing money every year because of inflation. Two, your competitors are growing, so they're able to spend more money to acquire more customers. So they're going to put you out of business. Three, you're not spending enough time, money, energy, resources into evolving and enhancing what you have. It's just not like a real thing. Like businesses have to grow, they have to scale, and it doesn't mean you have to double your revenue every year. But a small growth cycle, 10-15% is usually the number most companies aim to grow each year. And if you can hit that milestone, you're going to have a much better chance of sustaining it than if you are just like, I'm just going to stick right here and not grow past this point. Because eventually what will happen, one, you'll get lazy, two, something will stop working, or three, you're just going to get tired of it from working so hard, working so many hours and everything else. So businesses should be more looked at as a fine or an infinite game rather than a finite game, meaning the business that you have should live beyond you, which means there is no end point, there's no finish line, no checkered flag. This is the business that I have, and I'm going to run it until I sell it, or until I shut it down, or until someone else takes it over from me. Rather than I'm going to build this business and then I'm going to retire in 10 years or whatever it is. Like it's a completely different way to look at it.
That is an awesome way to close. With everything we just spoke about, whether it is something you already said you want to reiterate, or maybe something new we haven't touched on, someone listening, watching, like, there's a lot of awesome ideas in here. I like this, and this. If you were to say, look, with what I said or what I didn't say yet, like I mentioned, if you want to have a 7-figure mindset, at least do this one thing. At least do this above all else. What would you tell people to do?
No, without a doubt, you have to work hard. And I don't care what guru told you, whatever, that you're one funnel away from this, or you're one ad away from this, or your offer needs this. You have to work hard. You have to work smart and hard. Like, and that's just the reality of it. There's no getting around it. There's no magic pill. There is no this side hustle and 2 hours a day will make you an extra 50 grand a month. Like none of that is going to happen. Like, yes, you want to put in 12 months of 8-hour days every single day on this side hustle that's supposed to make you an extra 20 grand a month. And then it'll only cost you an hour or two a day. Sure. Like that's realistic. But thinking that there's some silver bullet out there that where you're going to run $1 million company and not work for it and not earn it and not put effort in and not try and not put yourself out there and not fail. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. Like get over the idea that magical money is going to fall from the sky because you push this button and all of a sudden it just works. All of your gurus, and I promise you, I've talked to a lot of them. I've helped them launch their stuff. I've been with them at zero. I've heard the stories of it. All of them are, they're doing, the guys that run the evergreen webinars these days. These guys were doing live webinars 4 or 5 days a week minimum for years before they got the webinar that they wanted. A lot of these guys they would send an email out to their 500 person email list and then send their personal cell phone number out and get on the phone, call them and close them on whatever it is they were selling, a $20 product, a $100 product, a $1,000 product. Like in order to get going, you have to take so much action that it becomes impossible for you to not succeed. Like when you at the end of the day, this is how you know that you are successful is that you put up enough evidence that day that it would be impossible for you to fail. And you collect that scorecard every single day and you look at it over 90 days, 120 days, 6 months, 12 months, 12 years. That scorecard better be in your favor to be successful. Otherwise, you just didn't work hard enough for it. And it's not hustle culture and it's not working your face off until you're dead, and it's not sleeping. It's like work, do the things that you need to do, get leads, close deals. That's it. You don't need a logo, you don't need a funnel, you don't need a website, you don't need branding, you don't need a color palette, you don't need some chat GPT thing. You need to talk to human beings. You need to sell them something that you have to sell. You need to collect money, and you need to do that all day, every day until you're at a place where you can start affording paying for advertising, building a funnel, having a logo, and doing those sorts of things. And that becomes an optimization phase of the old school way of picking up the phone, calling a human being, selling them on your product, and moving on to the next one. So if anyone takes anything away from this, I hope it's that.
That is awesome. And if people want to find you online, where's the best place or places to go?
They can find me on social, Cole Vandee, Vandee. I'm sure it'll be somewhere in the show notes as well. You can follow me there. I have a website too, colevandee.com, where there's some free resources, and I'll be publishing more content and blogs and videos and stuff like that as well.
This has been excellent. Thank you again, Cole. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I had a blast.
And scene.